We've got transfer portal madness already with two former SEC starting quarterbacks hitting the portal.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. We'll recap National Signing Day. We'll also get into some of the big names starting to enter their name into the portal. Now, I know you can't technically do it until Monday, but a lot of kids announcing their intent to enter the portal. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, we got to dive right into it because we got some portal madness happening. And we start with the news that came out late yesterday that Jackson Arnold planning to enter the transfer portal next week. 24/7 Sports' Matt Zenitz reporting Wednesday late afternoon that the decision came after an up and down season where Jackson Arnold started the season as a starter. Remember, he was a big five-star recruit a year ago, redshirted at Oklahoma, and then came into this season, started their bowl game, remember, and then started the season as a starter, and then was eventually benched for Michael Hawkins because the offense just wasn't doing well, and Jackson Arnold wasn't playing very well. And then eventually they benched Hawkins and went back to Jackson Arnold, and they actually started to play a little bit better and won some games, were more competitive, had the big upset win over Alabama in week 13. But bottom line, the Sooners offense struggled all year, led to them firing their offensive coordinator in Seth Luttrell, and then promoting Joe John Finley. And now they've gone out and, hired their new offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, coming over from Washington State. But Oklahoma going to have to look elsewhere for their quarterback next year. Now, Michael Hawkins, like we said, started a couple games as a true freshman, so he certainly could be in the mix. And I know a lot of OU fans were telling me in the offseason that they were excited for him and wanted to see him play. Some wanted to see him over Arnold this year. So there was that. But we'll see where Oklahoma goes. There is a possibility that Arbuckle's quarterback at Washington State, John Mateer, who had a good season there, that he could follow Arbuckle down to Oklahoma. But you got to think that he had the conversation with Arbuckle, at least to say, hey, would I fit in your offense or whatever. But it's a big name. Like I said, Jackson Arnold, former five-star quarterback, hitting the portal and moving on. And where's he going to go? Be very interesting to see. There are some SEC teams that with needs at quarterback. Missouri, one of them. Alabama in love with Ty Simpson next year. Auburn just lost basically their whole quarterback room. They did have a recruit. They do have their recruit from last year in Walker White, but we'll see. I mean, maybe Arnold's thinking, let me get out of the SEC altogether. Let me go to another conference. But big name to hit the transfer portal. Jackson Arnold. From Oklahoma. Yeah, I just keep seeing the highlights. I kept seeing it was just him running all over Alabama 2 weeks ago in that upset win. But see where he ends up. Jackson Arnold into the transfer portal. Another name to hit the transfer portal. This one came out Wednesday afternoon. Star wide receiver Dane Key over at Kentucky, not entering the NFL draft like some people thought he might. Instead, he's entering the transfer portal. The junior pass catcher announced the news, said, I'm incredibly grateful to University of Kentucky for the opportunity to be a part of such an amazing program and community. The experiences, the memories and relationships I've built will always hold a special place in my heart. I want to thank the coaches, teammates, entire staff at Kentucky. I want to thank God for guiding me on this journey. But after much prayer and reflection, made the decision to enter the transfer portal for my final year. Now, in 3 years in Lexington, Dane Key has had 126 catches, over 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns, and he's been a stud. Former four-star out of Lexington, Kentucky, so always stings a little bit more when a hometown kid decides to leave. But he ranked as the nation's number 45 wide receiver coming out, the number one prospect from the state of Kentucky. So that is one that everybody's going to have on their radar. You got to think, gosh, everybody from, I mean, look, everybody in the SEC could use a Dane Key. So we'll see if he ends up in the SEC or goes elsewhere. But big loss there for Mark Stoops and the Kentucky Wildcats. A few other notable names from Kentucky that have already made it known that they're going to enter the portal. Defensive lineman Keyshawn Silver played a good bit this year. Defensive back Avery Stewart, and then offensive lineman Cortland Ford. And that was an intriguing name because that's a guy who started at USC for a couple years. I believe he started the season injured. I don't think he ever got healthy. I think he didn't even play at Kentucky. Could be wrong there, but from what I remember, I never remember seeing him out there on that offensive line for Kentucky. So an interesting one. Comes in through the portal and never plays. But I said earlier, multiple quarterbacks. We told you guys yesterday on the show that Conner Weigman, the Aggie quarterback, had entered the portal. Again, another big-time recruit that came to A&M and was expected to be the guy last year, and then, battled injuries that took him out last year. And then this year, had injuries. Marcel Reed came in for him, and then he came back from the injury, started against LSU, played so poorly, he was benched by halftime. They went to Marcel Reed in the second half, and Marcel Reed was fantastic, and they never looked back. And Marcel Reed now kind of projects as the guy moving forward for the Aggies. So Conner Weigman is moving on. But Pete Nakos over at On3 Sports put out there yesterday that Weigman is expected to be courted by several programs such as Syracuse, Iowa, Louisville, and Wisconsin, but also through Missouri in the mix there as well. Missouri expected to be in the mix for Conner Weigman. That will be interesting. They're going to lose Brady Cook, who's been the go-to guy for Eli Drinkwitz in Mizzou the last couple of years. But like I said, Weigman, a former five-star prospect, has shown glimpses at times. This season, he only completed 56% of his passes for over 800 yards, 3 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. But he was part of that 2022 number one ranked recruiting class at A&M. Spent 3 years with the program, has 2 seasons of eligibility remaining because he redshirted his first year. And look, no offense, but Drew Pine, I didn't like what I saw from Drew Pine overall as the backup to Brady Cook this year. So, again, don't know if it's going to happen, but that would certainly be a big get if Missouri can land him. Now, I have also heard that Houston is going to make a run at him. He's a Texas kid, and Willie Fritz down there at University of Houston might be interested in trying to sway Weigman over there, but would love to see him stay in the SEC. Would love to see him over there at Mizzou. One other note here, Texas A&M quarterback Jalen Henderson also planning to enter the portal, according to On3 Sports. He was a Fresno State transfer who transferred into A&M, played some games for them in 2023. I remember that LSU game he started in, played very well in that game, but he will have 2 years of eligibility remaining. I almost want to say, was it the Texas Bowl he started in, got hurt after he threw like one pass, and then that's when Marcel Reed came in and finished the bowl game there. But, we talked about the exodus of the quarterback room at Auburn. Seeing a little bit of an exodus of a quarterback room at A&M with Conner Weigman, Jalen Henderson both entering the portal. But again, they'll have Marcel Reed back, and he projects to be the starter, of course, for the foreseeable future there at A&M. A couple more transfer portal tidbits. And again, just to reiterate, you can't, I'm saying they've entered the portal. You can't officially enter the portal until Monday, but all the websites, 24/7 Sports, On3, all of them reporting that, these kids have made it known to people that they are entering the portal. But over to Alabama, transfer linebacker Keanu Coate planning visits. We know he entered into the portal. He's planning visits to, among the schools he's going to visit, Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. Played in 4 games this season for Alabama, had 3 tackles in the Wisconsin game, had half a sack in the win over Georgia, finished with 9 tackles in his 2 seasons at Alabama. So Keanu Coate, again, big time, big talent linebacker. Will be interesting to see if he ends up again. Pete Golding at Ole Miss could be a reunion there, or could go play at Vandy, where Clark Lee's got that defense playing light years better at Vanderbilt this year. A couple other names: Alabama wide receiver Kobe Prentice entering the portal. I think we mentioned that on yesterday's show, but Kobe Prentice was a guy who came in as a freshman, showed some glimpses in the spring game that year. I was a big fan of him, thought he would make an impact, just never really clicked under Nick Saban and then with Kalen DeBoer this year. So see where he ends up. And these are just some other names in the last 24 to 48 hours to enter the portal. South Carolina running back DJ Braswell, Vandy DB Jeffrey Ugo, Florida D lineman Kelby Collins, A&M wide receiver Cyrus Allen, and Tennessee running back Khalifa Keith. Those are all names from the SEC entering the transfer portal. So there you have it. That is the latest on the portal as of now. But look, this thing is ever changing by the minute, and we're going to have way more names. Some big names from people I've talked to, some bigger names that are going to be entering the portal. But to me, it doesn't get any bigger than Jackson Arnold and Conner Weigman. But of course, we knew about Weigman yesterday, but Jackson Arnold, that one was really, really big. And a big loss for Oklahoma. Again, the OU fans may like Michael Hawkins, or there may be a guy in the portal that they're going to go at. So be fascinating to see where those guys land. All right. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen of the day, every day. Coming up next, we are going to give you some of the highlights from National Signing Day yesterday. That's coming your way in just a second. But first, I want to remind you about our friends over at FanDuel, and you could tackle all the college and NFL action over at FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers, you bet the $5, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app giving you everything you need to place live bets on college and the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can go check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, all on the same page where you place your bets. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. We tell you all week, keeping an eye on that Georgia-Texas line in the SEC championship game, and still not really moving. Still sitting at about Georgia, a 2.5-point underdog. Texas, a 2.5-point favorite. If you like that, you want to get in on the action. Look, I've been saying Kirby Smart is an underdog, usually pretty smart money. So if you want to go take advantage of it, go check it out over there at FanDuel and get signed up. And of course, you can get started with that $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. And throughout this week, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest transfer portal announcements. And then next week, we'll get the actual official transfer portal moves. We'll get guys into the portal. We start being contacted by schools. And I think we'll start to have some movement very quickly with some kids. All right, let's get into some highlights from signing day yesterday, the early National Signing Day. We start over at Missouri. They got a big win on the recruiting trail, picking up a 4-star defensive end, Javian Hilson, one of the top overall edge prospects in the country, a top 50 player. Changed his mind several times throughout recruiting. Originally committed to Alabama when Nick Saban was there. But with the major changes that followed, he committed to Florida State, and he was a member of the mass exodus of commitments from Florida State just these last couple of weeks. So big pickup there for Eli Drinkwitz. They also picked up 4-star running back Brendan Haygood, committed to Mizzou. He's from the state of Texas, was previously committed to Boise State. So congrats to Eli Drinkwitz there in picking up a recruit. And I go back and forth. So you may hear some rankings that sound odd to you. I look at On 3 and I take notes. I look at the 24/7 Sports Composite. So again, if you go by one and I say something, then it's the other. Just know it's the other website I'm referring to. So whatever. They're both good. They both do a good job. We'll try to make it all make sense. But Missouri, as of this recording, the 19th class in the composite. Congrats to Eli. Over at Auburn, Hugh Freeze doing work. He may not be winning many football games on the field, but Hugh Freeze winning a lot of recruits over. In fact, some movement yesterday. They were able to hang on to the big 5-star quarterback Deuce Knight. He signed with Auburn. Said, War Damn Eagle, it's time to turn this program around. We're bringing back the 2010, 2011 vibes back to the Plains. Now, just doing some math here, Deuce Knight, let's just say for argument's sake, he's 18. That would put him born in 2006. That would mean he was 4 years old when Auburn was having their vibes on the plane. So it's kind of funny that he would say that, but big get there because there were some people flirting with him and trying to steal him away. Good for Auburn to lock up Deuce Knight. They also got class of 2025 D lineman Darian Smith. He flipped his commitment from Tennessee to Auburn, 6'3", 265 pounds from the Baltimore area. He'd been committed to the Vols since the summer and flipped to Auburn yesterday. And lastly, 4-star corner Donovan Starr, sticking with his commitment and signing with Auburn. He's a 6-foot corner from Brentwood, Tennessee, had been committed to Auburn since June and locked in with them. Over Texas A&M, they picked up 4-star running back Jamarian Morrow, flipped his commitment from Mizzou to A&M. He's 5'10", 190 pounds from the state of Tennessee. Also, 5-star wide receiver Jerome Miles committed and signed with Texas A&M yesterday, was previously committed to USC, ranked as a top 5 wide receiver, according to On3. Or Tennessee, man, Josh Heupel was doing some work yesterday. First, they got class of 2025 safety Timothy Merritt flipping from Miami to Tennessee, 6 foot tall, 185 pound safety from Alabama. He'd been committed to the Hurricanes since last summer. So that's a big pickup for the Vols. Then they also got 4-star D lineman Isaiah Campbell. They had to sweat that one out for a little bit. Sounded like North Carolina was making a push, but he ultimately stuck it out and signed with Tennessee, honoring his commitment. And then late in the day yesterday, 4-star linebacker Jaden Perlott flipped his commitment from USC to Tennessee. 6'4", 205 pound linebacker, had been committed to the Trojans since July. So good pickup there. Over Texas, they got elite 2025 athlete Michael Terry III. He committed to Texas, 6'3", 215 pounds from San Antonio. Chose the Longhorns over the likes of Nebraska and Oregon. On3 has him rated as the #1 athlete in the class. So big get there. And as of this recording, Texas jumped Alabama and Georgia up to the #1 class. And that was with the flip of Cade Phillips, the 4-star DB from LSU. Was previously a Texas guy, was committed to LSU this whole way, and then just this week flipped back to Texas. So good class there for Sark. Over at South Carolina, Shane Beamer doing some work. Class of 2025 D lineman Christian Ingram committed to Carolina. 6'6", 280 pound D lineman from the state of Georgia. Chose the Gamecocks over USC, Kentucky, and Michigan. Also, they flipped 4-star offensive tackle Damola Ajadan, I guess we'll try to say. It flipped his commitment from Georgia Tech to South Carolina. And then tight end Mike Tyler had been committed to LSU since August. He flipped to South Carolina yesterday. 6'3", 220 pound tight end. So good flips there for South Carolina yesterday. Florida, they got safety Lagonza Hayward committed to Florida yesterday. He's previously committed to Tennessee. He said on social media, it's time for the new era, Swamp King. It's a good name, Lagonza Hayward. Over at LSU, they did some work yesterday. First, they were able to stick with or get 5-star corner DJ Pickett to stick it out and honor his commitment. There were tons of rumors that Oregon was coming after him, among others, Miami, that he might flip. But the 6'4", 180 pound corner, #1 corner, according to On3, been committed to LSU since the summer. He is headed to Baton Rouge. Also, 5-star running back Harlem Berry. He signed with LSU as expected, the number 17 overall prospect, according to On3. And then late in the day yesterday, they got 5-star O-lineman Solomon Thomas to flip his commitment from Florida State to LSU. He had been committed to the Seminoles since December a year ago. So good day there for Brian Kelly after all the flipping of recruits and losing the #1 recruit in Bryce Underwood to Michigan. They were able to still salvage what 8th best class in the country. Over at Alabama, they got one away from LSU late yesterday. 4-star wide receiver Derek Meadows flipped his commitment from LSU to Bama. 6'6", 205 pounds from the Las Vegas area, and he joins Alabama's top 3 class in the country, highlighted by the big 5-star quarterback Keelan Russell. Big addition to this Bama class. Fans are super excited about. Over at Arkansas, they got some big news yesterday. How about 4-star quarterback Madden Iamaliava flipping his commitment from UCLA to Arkansas? 6'3", 195 pounds, been committed to the Bruins since May. He is the younger brother of Nico Iamaleava. He tweeted out, SEC, we here. Huge pickup for Arkansas. Again, they're Iamaleava brothers living out there on the West Coast. Took a lot to get Nico out to Knoxville, Tennessee. Well, his brother's going to come and join him in the SEC, flipping his commitment from UCLA to Arkansas. Big get there for Sam Pittman. Obviously, a lot of appeal with Bobby Petrino calling the plays on that offense. Told you, we talked to Taylor Green in the offseason, and he said, watching plays of Lamar Jackson and all these great quarterbacks that Bobby Petrino has coached appealed to him. And so now Nico's little brother, Madden Iamaleava, going to Arkansas. Big get there for the Hogs. Over at Oklahoma, they got 5-star offensive tackle Michael Fasusi sticking with his commitment. 6'5", 300-pound offensive tackle from Lewisville, Texas, had been committed to the Sooners since August. He's the number 2 tackle, according to On3 Sports. Good on them to get him to stick with his commitment, because, again, that was one that seemed to be wavering a little bit. Then they also had quarterback Jet New, NIU. He flipped his commitment from Oklahoma State to Oklahoma. Over at Ole Miss, 4-star linebacker Tyler Lockhart flipped his commitment from Mississippi State to the Rebels yesterday. 6'3", 212 pounds from the state of Mississippi. Been committed to the Bulldogs since September. And he tweeted out, SIP made kids come to the SIP. So staying in the state of Mississippi. Also, 4-star wide receiver Winston Watkins committed to Ole Miss yesterday. The number 38 wide receiver in this cycle. Over at Georgia, they're super excited about their 5-star plus edge, Isaiah Gibson, signed with the Bulldogs yesterday. He was previously pledged USC from March until late May when he flipped over to Kirby Smart in Georgia, and he stuck with it. One more note here. Interesting quote from Brian Kelly yesterday. He hit the podium to talk about National Signing Day, and he said, quote, "Today feels more like tax day than it does signing day. Scrambling these last few days, it's unlike any recruiting period that I've ever been involved with. It's not just about finding the right fit where you can develop holistically and graduate and play for a championship. It's about what's the most money I can get. It's unfortunate, but it's the world we live in, and you have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to realign and be prepared." So, look, a lot of folks won't agree with Brian Kelly on that. But some folks will and say, yeah, look, it's a little weird. I mean, it used to be you sold kids on, hey, it's a great place. You're going to come get a degree here, study whatever you want. We're going to get you on the football field. You're going to have a great career. We're going to get you to the pros. We're going to win a championship. It used to be all that. But also the conversation is, and how much NIL are you getting me? How much in the bag are you getting me? So anyway, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's where we are now. It is a different time in college football. And just to kind of put a cap on it, the SEC classes, as of this recording, if anything flipped in the last couple hours, that certainly could change. But the 24/7 composite, they finished with Texas 1, Alabama 2, Georgia 3. So SEC. Then you got Auburn down at the 6th best class, LSU at number 8. Good on Brian Kelly, finished there. A&M at 9. Great job by Mike Elko with a top 10 class. Tennessee at 10. Florida at 11. Great job by Billy Napier these last couple of weeks. Now, I think On3 had it flipped. I think they had Florida in as the 10th team, but 10, 11, whatever. It's a good class. Ole Miss at 14. Oklahoma at 16. Mizzou at 19. And South Carolina at 20. That's almost the entire SEC there in the top 20 classes. Then you go down, Arkansas at 28. Kentucky at 29. Mississippi State at 31. And I believe that was it. I think Vandy was down there a little bit. So fortunate because Clark Lee had a couple of kids get away at the last minute. Yeah, they finished with the 71 class as of now. And I say finish, keep in mind, this is the early signing period. We're still going to have the other signing period coming at the in February, where there will still be some more kids to make decisions. But anyway, there you have it. That is the latest on what went down yesterday. Some of the big takeaways from National Signing Day. We got more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Before we wrap things up on this Thursday, that this week has just completely flown by, we are going to have to spend tomorrow's show focused on the SEC championship. We've got tons to discuss when it comes to Georgia and Texas. Of course, later today, depending on what time you're going to be listening to this, we're going to have Sark and Kirby talking with the media, with their official media availabilities ahead of the SEC championship game. So we'll get some updates on health and other things like that. But big game. It's crazy that these coaches had to deal with National Signing Day in the middle of preparing for a conference championship game, but should be a good game happening this Saturday between Georgia and Texas. All right, before we get out of here, they want to bring this up. We talked about the college football playoff rankings and Alabama sliding in there in the mix at number 11 among the college football playoff rankings. Well, Lane Kiffin took to social media yesterday to sound off and share his thoughts on the rankings. He is fed up with the college football playoff committee after their latest rankings left Ole Miss outside of the 12-team bracket. Here was Lane Kiffin on social media, 100% fired up on Wednesday morning. He tweeted out, "You guys actually meet for days and come up with these rankings? College football playoff, do you actually watch the quality of players, teams, and road environments?" He said in parentheses, "We played in one of yours this year. Just try and make the ACC feel relevant, ? By the way, one of those teams paid us not to play again next year." That was Wake Forest. He said, "Same number 12 spot. You guys had Clemson ranked last year. How did that go against the SEC? Rewatch Georgia Clemson closely if you want a reminder of the two conferences. Hashtag spot the ball anywhere at ACC football." So, Lane Kiffin was not happy, to say the least, when it comes to the college football playoff rankings. Now, a lot of people were saying, well, don't lose to Florida, don't lose to Kentucky, and then you would have been in the mix, Lane. I get it, but, can also make the case, well, there is a 3-loss team in there. It's Alabama. And Alabama didn't play Ole Miss this year, but I think he was more angry that Miami came in at 12, that Miami was ranked ahead of Ole Miss. And basically, he was making the case, like, we played a much tougher schedule than Miami did and actually have some better quality wins. They beat Georgia. He went on to question, like we said, if the committee watches the quality of teams and road environments, or if the latest rankings are just a ploy to try and make the ACC feel relevant and good about themselves. So we will see on that. By the way, Alabama into the playoff rankings. A lot of people having beef with that. Of course, Alabama, as Ward Manuel said, 3-1 against the current top 25 teams in their rankings, and Miami was 0-1. But Alabama's other two losses came to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, and that last loss happened just 2 weeks ago and was pretty excruciating. Oklahoma finished the season at 6-6, and they beat up Alabama 24-3. Miami's losses were to Syracuse, who jumped into the top 25 this week, and the other one was to Georgia Tech, that just took Georgia to 8 overtimes. Fair or not, Alabama's leap of Miami going to create a lot of conversation throughout this week and weekend. A lot of people saying SEC bias and all that kind of stuff. But basically, we're going to find out what's going to happen this weekend. Alabama's spot is not guaranteed. Yahoo Sports, they put up a piece, said, if Clemson beats SMU in the ACC title game this Saturday, will the committee drop SMU below either or both of Alabama and Miami? If SMU stays ahead of both Alabama and Miami in that scenario, they are still in the playoff. And I know, that their coach was out making the rounds on social media, Rhett Lashley, kind of appealing to, hey, if we lose to Clemson, we should still get in. Don't leave us out. So this is where it gets tough, because you start to get into the debate of a 3-loss SEC team that's got some good wins versus, a 2-loss ACC team that, maybe doesn't have many great wins on their schedule. It's all subjective. That's why you have a committee. They're supposed to get in a room and debate these sort of things, but they just, it seems like they're looking just at wins and losses and not even strength of schedule or anything else, really. They're just going, well, this team's got the least amount of losses, to which I say that just sends the message. Anybody who's got a tough non-conference game scheduled next year, try to get it off your schedule. Try to get it off. Why would you play, tough non-conference games? The committee doesn't care. They're just looking at, did you win your games? So, a close loss in an opener to a Clemson, or I don't know, insert whatever team you want. Like, why play that game? LSU opened with USC. Georgia opened with Clemson this year. Alabama went and played at Wisconsin. Why would you schedule that? Just play on, I don't know, a a Citadel or somebody like that, because that's what the committee just cares that you win the game. They don't care that you went and played a tough opponent and lost a close one. They're not even putting that into their resume of argument. So, all right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. I've run it enough. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC, getting you set for a big SEC championship game out in Atlanta. You guys have a great day. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Make your second listen. Check out our guys who do Locked On Bulldogs and Locked On Longhorns. Jonathan Davis talking all things Texas, and Clint Chamblin and Daniel Monroe talking all things Bulldogs on Georgia. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.